Good evening. In 2019, Carpenters unions across Canada and United States launched an anti-fraud campaign to combat tax fraud in the construction industry. Today we welcome in our studios Mike Yorke, President of Carpenters District Council of Ontario, that will tell us more about the importance of this campaign and the results so far. Hi Mike, welcome to our studios.
Hello Andrea. Well, it's great to be with you here today and talking about an important issue for so many of your listeners in our industry, and then of course as community members.
Thank you so much. Can you start telling us about this campaign for those who don't know about it?
Well, the tax fraud and anti-tax fraud campaign was started, as you mentioned, in 2019 by the Carpenters Union. That's across all of Canada and all of the United States. And we're really going after the unscrupulous employer that takes advantage of workers and refuses to pay appropriate taxes to provincial, state, and federal governments. So our industry is huge across North America. We're generating billions of dollars. And that money that appropriately goes to governments really should go there. But there's many contractors out in our industry across North America that do cheat, and they do try to avoid every payment. And when a contractor is avoiding taxation payments on behalf of their workers, we also know through experience that it's the same kind of contractor that avoids appropriate apprenticeship programs, that avoids appropriate health and safety programs. So really it's a way for us as an organization to go out and really clean up things in our industry that need addressing.
And why is it so important to fight?
Well, that's a great question because, you know, when workers are exploited, when they are ripped off, and when people are not making appropriate payments to taxes, to health care, to health and safety programs, to apprenticeship programs, we all hurt. For instance, you know, one of our main goals right now is to say, let's go after the cheaters in the industry, but why? So we can then use that revenue to build up our society. So one of our thoughts, or one of our programs that we had was, imagine what we can build in Ontario if we were to eliminate tax fraud. So it could go, that money could then go into healthcare, could then go into roads and bridges and schools and the communities that really do need that support mechanism. So we've just come through a global pandemic. We all recognize the role of healthcare workers and of the healthcare system in our society. Why should that system be deprived of needed funds by unscrupulous contractors?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question, yeah. Can you tell us more about the evidence showing how tax fraud hurts workers and their families?
Well, okay, yeah, you know, in fact, actually, that's a very good question because one needs evidence. So in part, that's driven by research. Across North America, it's in the tens and tens of billions of dollars. There's an organization known as the Ontario Construction Secretariat. It's tripartite, which means it's made up of management individuals, it's made up of labor, and it's made up of government. They've done a lot of research into the underground economy and into what we call, you know, the areas of tax fraud. So for instance, some of the research that they've used, we have then turned around and get that message out there to our members and to the broader community. So for example, I brought in a prop, but this is the poster that we'll have on job sites all across Ontario. The work of the Ontario Construction Secretariat says that underground activity in Ontario's construction industry costs us all, and it's estimated to be up to $3 billion per year. So that's money out of income tax, out of HST, out of the employment insurance, and out of CPP and employer health tax. So we're all hurting due to tax fraud in our industry.
Mm-hmm. And this is the fourth year of this campaign.
This is the fourth year.
How has been the acceptance of the industry?
Well, as I mentioned, you know, like working with partners and really respected partners in the industry, like the Ontario Construction Secretariat. So we go to many of the employer groups and they fully endorse what we're doing. And the reason is that's protecting them as well. And so for the fact that the Carpenters Union is out in front on this, we're speaking for not just our members, but all workers in the construction sector, the employers in the construction sector, and then by extrapolation or by enlargement, the communities as well. So we're not just narrow focused. We're thinking of a broad approach on this. We think it's a serious issue, and what we need to do is get that message out there.
Mm-hmm. And can you share with us some of the results of this campaign?
Well, this is great. So, given that it's the fourth year, and we have put a lot of energy and effort into this. You know, at this point in time, we're also saying we've done the education. Now it's time for legislation. So we've talked to the political leaders of the day at the provincial, the city, and the federal governments. Now we're saying to them, you need to enact legislation that really prohibits this and protects workers. So for instance, as a high watermark or a great benchmark, to use an industry term, I look at the City of Toronto. They have a valid collective agreement with the Carpenters and many other unions. They have an active fair wage policy and an active fair wage office that really protects workers. So we're saying to many other communities, many other municipalities, why don't you look at establishing a fair wage policy that protects workers? Why don't you potentially down the road, you could look at a fair wage office? So, but initially, I think a policy is a good step to make. So for the communities that your listeners and watchers would be living in, Brampton, Mississauga, Vaughan, etc., that's where we're going after right now. So that's kind of the step. Things have to take place on a step-by-step basis. I think one thing I might like to mention, and people are wondering, okay, tax fraud in the construction industry, what is this all about? It's on a spectrum. So it can be as benign as someone coming in to do a back fence or a deck or paint some of your rooms. That's not really what the Carpenters are really going after here. We know that takes place, but you know what? That's not our primary focus. Our primary focus is projects, substantial projects in the hundreds of millions of dollars where workers are exploited, where they are being forced into an underground economic activity that not necessarily they even want to do. Because many cases, if you want to, let's say if you're a worker on the job site, I'm a carpenter or a drywaller or whatever trade, you go onto the job and they say, I don't want to hire you as an employee. I want you to be a subcontractor. So we can walk onto a job and there's a subcontractor to a subcontractor to a subcontractor, and that's how often it's done. Misclassification of workers. They should be employees for tax purposes, but if they're a subcontractor, an independent operator, there's all kinds of ways to dodge taxes. That's primarily how it happens. And then, as I said, it's a spectrum. So I talked about someone doing your fence or the deck in the backyard. This is not an issue for us. Where it gets really bad is in human trafficking, where workers are exploited on a day-by-day basis. About 10 years ago in Burlington, there was a major case. It was known as the Domator case. And the Globe and Mail did fantastic articles on it. And it really made the careers of two RCMP officers that broke that case wide open. Up to 20 and 30 workers were exploited living in someone's basement. They were brought over from Eastern Europe. They were living in someone's basement, and they were shipped out to job sites all over Southern Ontario. And when that hit, that was human trafficking, was the charges laid by the RCMP. So that's an important case, and that's a benchmark that we point to. Say, that's the worst case scenario. And then we talked about some of the back deck, but primarily in the middle, it's happening as misclassification of workers.
Okay, thanks for letting us know. That's very important. What are the upcoming events of this initiative?
Well, this is, another good question. So what we try to do, we're meeting with levels of government, from the municipalities to the provincial government to the federal government, cabinet ministers. So that's ongoing the whole month of April. Also, I brought some materials, and I showed you one poster, and then there's another. So these will be all over job sites, all over Ontario. And members will be wearing the stickers on their toolboxes, etc. And then even the public will see those posters on the hoardings outside of job sites. So if we find areas where we believe it's appropriate to bring attention to tax fraud taking place on a job site, we'll engage in a demonstration at a particular job site. But primarily right now, it's getting the message out to levels of government, and then through a lot of media. So like this discussion today, print media, television, and et cetera, and radio. So we're really getting that message out to not just our members, but to the general public about this serious issue.
And how can people know more?
Great question. Okay, so would go to, initially respond, go to notaxfraud.com. And then if people wanted to also go to the Ontario Construction Secretariat, they can Google that, or go to iciconstruction.com. It's all kinds of really good information and research there. So if folks are interested, they'll find that. And then on the notaxfraud.com website, there's a lot of videos that we've shot over the last year or two, so people can see how we engage in this issue.
Right. Is there any message that you would like to leave to the Portuguese community? This is a this is your chance.
Well, again, I really appreciate that, and I know that workers from Portugal have made incredible contributions to the country of Canada and to Toronto and to our communities across the country. And we want to work with you in the best way possible and gather together and come together to take on this issue, but also remember that there's an open door at the Carpenters Union for the skills that people of Portugal bring to our country, and let's build Canada together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mike.
All right, great. Okay, thank you very much.